Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, or, as John Campea likes to call me, your existential Mr. Rogers, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I am here with another episode of the Mailbag for Tuesday, June 14th, 2022, but I'm not alone. This is the first time I have been privileged to do a Mailbag with the lovely Chris Carr. Chris!
Aww. Yay.
Welcome to the Mailbag. Can you do, I'm going to put you on the spot. Uh-huh. Can you just do a few voices for me? Because I love your voices.
Yeah, sure. What do you want to do, Rob?
Oh, my God.
We can get Guy into some anime things where we can be like a hero boy who's a little, like, intense or something like that. We can do a little Valley girl who's just, like, really excited to be here. She's so pumped.
This is already the best Mailbag ever.
I'm so excited. This is my first one. I've never done one.
You've never done one. And, of course, people know that on the John Campea Show, when we are live during the day, we open up the Super Chats right after our topics of the day, and people can fire in their Super Chats, and we will answer them live on the show. But if you don't get a chance to do that, our operators are standing by 24/7 at the link right down there below, and you can send us any, I don't know, people could just review what you just did. That was amazing. Ooh. You can send us comments, you can send us quips, you can send us anything you want, and if we deem them appropriate, we will answer them right here on the Mailbag. And to that end, we're going to jump right in. I can't wait to see what my friend Chris here is going to say to the questions you ask or pose or whatever. Michael Jones sends in a tip and says, hey, when you started the show at 10, you would put the live chat up 90 minutes to 2 hours before the show. Since you moved it to 10:30, the chat doesn't go up until about an hour or less before the show. If this is the plan going forward, let me know and I will adjust. That is an interesting question. Oh, yeah. I think I don't know the answer to this.
That's kind of a Campea question.
That is definitely a John Campea question. I think though that John has actually figured out a way to keep the show a little bit more streamlined and focused. And I know that we used to have Super Chats open and we couldn't get to all of them. Mm-hmm. So now I think what John has done is made the show a bit more focused. I think it works better.
Yeah, and he wants to be able to answer all of your questions while we're still on air is the big thing. And also moving it to this part of the show was mostly so we wouldn't have repeats of our topics and go into things that we had already covered and be redundant. This way you guys can be more engaged with us because it's a conversation, right? You pick the topics. We want to actually talk to you about them. So this way it flows a little bit better. I think so
too. And with the live chat open, I think it had a tendency to get derailed sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes. Clay Woodley sends in a tip and says, hey guys, love the show. Top Gun Maverick was awesome. One of the best movies I've seen in a while. Over or under 30% that it joins the $1 billion club. If it doesn't join the $1 billion club, I think it will come close. Well, Chris, it's coming close. What do you think?
It's coming really close. I think it's got it. I mean, and I say this as somebody who is not the Top Gun Maverick stan that you are. I know it's a great film, but for me it was, I'll see this maybe again with somebody else in 4DX, but it wasn't something that I was going to rush back to go see. It's a well-done film, but people love it. People are clamoring to come and see this again, so I think it's going to do it.
I think if it passes $1 billion, it will take my breath away.
Well done.
So there you go. So thanks for that, Clay. Clay Woodley goes on to say, what are your thoughts on Idris Elba's new film, Beast? Judging by the trailer, it looks like it might actually be good. And after hundreds of shark movies, this looks like a breath of fresh air. Well, for those of you who don't know, I've seen the trailer. Idris Elba's with his family, and they're like on a safari in the outback of Africa. Not outback, that's Australia, but in Africa. And there are beasts going after them. And it looks really scary.
It looks terrifying. Yeah, I mean, having that big ass lion come after you and your family.
Would you go on an African safari?
I don't know. My parents have gone. My parents went to South Africa and they had a blast, and they did have some scary encounters. But I don't know. I'm kind of a wimp, Rob. I feel like you know this about me because of my movie preferences.
Well, some people like animals.
I do love animals, but I'm afraid they'll eat me.
Yeah, that's. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, that incredible actor, I'm blanking on his name, from District 9 is in this.
Charlito Copley.
Yes, thank you. And I love anything with him. So
he's great. Yeah. And he's in that movie. Mm-hmm. Jonathan DeMella says, hello, John and Rob, or Chris. Rob, how was it being a big-time producer on set? And can you make an Agent Cody Banks 3? I love all your work on Agent Cody Banks 1 and 2. Well, I'll tell you, I was not really I've been on set, a big time producer on set, but not that set. I could write a book about what happened with Agent Cody Banks. So we actually bought that script. I had two partners in a company called Endless Entertainment, Carrie David, who's now a famous documentarian, and Danny Gold. And Danny Gold ultimately did not like Carrie and I very much, and we had a huge blow up making that movie. But so it's a long story, but I'm the only single card credited producer. Everyone else has to share a card, including Madonna. I got a single card. My name says co-produced by Robert Meyer Burnett, and it's amazing. It's an amazing.
Is that the benefit of having a longer name? Because Chris Carr, they throw that shit everywhere.
Oh no! I had to negotiate for that.
Ooh.
You don't get what you deserve, kids. You get what you negotiate. Mm-hmm. But yes, there will never be an Agent Cody Banks 3 because of the amazing douchebaggery of my former partner.
Oh man.
Yeah, I know. It's a long story. Jonathan Nemella goes on to say, "Hello, John and Rob. Rob, what films do you think physical media collectors need to get that are becoming hard to get?" That's an interesting question. I mean, look, clearly your more exploitation titles are the ones that are hard to get, and then they sell out. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, this Swedish rape revenge film, Thriller: A Cruel Picture, just came out, AKA They Call Her One-Eye. Daryl Hannah's character in Kill Bill was based on the character of They Call Her One-Eye. That just was released by Vinegar Syndrome. Sold out. If you can get that. It's not a very happy film.
No.
As you might know, it's really terrifying and horrible and really off-putting, but hard to get. So I would say that if you're collecting physical media, first of all, you should collect things that you love, not things that you're going to think are going to go out of print that you can sell later. But I would say that exploitation and low-budget titles are usually the ones that, meaning low-budget, the movies are cult titles, sometimes go away the fastest.
So stock up on trauma films and things like that.
Yeah, if that's what you like. That's what you like. But it's a good question. Jonathan Nemella goes on to say, John and Rob, I recently graduated from First Institute Film School in Orlando, Florida. Congratulations. I've been working on many short films. I'm moving to Atlanta next year for film work. Do you have any advice? Bring on the filthy. Well, first of all, you're doing exactly what you should be doing. Mm-hmm. When I got out of film school, I worked on anything and everything I can. And you as an actress.
Oh, yeah. It's any student film you can do, being an extra on set, being a PA. I worked craft services.
Yep.
I just wanted to be on set as much as possible.
And I mean, don't you think that any experience on set, even if it's a low budget short film, you still gain experience that's invaluable?
Honestly, it's usually even better because when you don't have as many hands on deck, then it becomes, hey, we actually need you to do this, or you get promoted to do something else. And you really, it's a baptism by fire, that way of, well, you're here, so you're going to learn how to do this today.
Right. And you learn an understanding of other people's jobs on set.
Exactly.
And a film set is an interconnected organism where everybody is sort of vital. Mm-hmm. And that's what you got to do. You work your way up. Work begets work. And the only other advice I would say is be somebody that other people like to work with.
Yes, that's huge.
You know,
it's anyone can be talented, but surprisingly, not everyone can be kind, polite, and show up on time. You'd think they're the easiest things, but you'd be so surprised.
And showing up on time's late. Show up 10 minutes early.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Always show up early, leave late. And when your day is over, ask people if they need any help. Do that in the morning as well, but you've got your own job to look after. But at the end, if you're done with your job, go around and ask people what they might need.
Great advice.
Brennan Tasty Waffle Mar says, hi, John. I have been a fan since right after Disney bought Lucasfilm. I want to tell you the direct and or indirect effect you've had on me. One, I found a great social group that got me through the pandemic. Two, I created a podcast that has run, this is one of two, for 4 years now, based on your advice. And three, I joined the First Class League, a subset of the Schmodown, and have since become the Star Wars Division champion.
Woo!
And it all started when I clicked on a thumbnail for AMC Movie Talk 10 years ago.
Wow. Brennan.
I mean, isn't that what people, when people say that something that we're doing has inspired them, Isn't that some of the best comments we get from people?
It's so sweet and moving. Because a lot of times it's just, aren't I so lucky that I get to go just cut it up with my friends and
I know.
and talk a little shit about movies?
No, and I think it's great, and you know, I mean, to be around you personally is infectious. You can't not be smiling when you're doing a show with this lady over here.
Likewise, R&B. Oh
It's a lot of fun, and you know, to hear that we got you through the pandemic. I know a lot of people had. I hear that a lot. That a lot of people. Just our buoyant, fun personalities kept people going because everyone else was so, this sucks.
Exactly. Well, and to do a podcast that's really taken off too, to be the division champ, hell yeah, that's all awesome stuff.
I mean, I know something a little bit about the Schmodown, and it's not easy. So congratulations to that. In the Star Wars division, let me just say, if you move up and end up competing against, John has won Schmodowns. That is one tough division. You got to keep studying. That's rough.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be facing anyone. So congratulations on that. Very, very cool. Reamer Bulldog says, hey, John and Rob, Warner Brothers enabled Ezra Miller's behavior by not speaking out and condemning his bad behavior, and they still have not spoken out on what transpired with this minor. It's going to be hard to watch The Flash, but I still will. I think Reamer is asking, that's a different question. But I would say this, I mean, I think that Warner Brothers has to be now very careful what they say. I mean, there's crazy, weird shenanigans that have now crossed over into potential criminal behavior, maybe. Yeah. And I don't think, we were wondering, why don't they say anything? I think they have to figure out what they can even say publicly.
It's just gone too far now, right? They've been quiet for so long that now that it's snowballed into this, what do you say? Because now there's restraining orders and other investigations and searching for people. I mean...
And all Warner Brothers really they can really only comment on their movie and the disposition because they're not the authorities and they're not, I mean, I think they have to wait and see where this, and it's still developing, this whole situation. Mm-hmm. Reamer Bulldog goes on to say, one of two, part one, I watched the first episode of Miss Marvel. It was so amazing. I was so charmed, and I thought it was delightful, and I agree this is the best first episode Marvel that has been on Disney Plus. My only concern, like with the other Disney Plus shows, is this story going to be too much? Because my issue hasn't been the quality of the Disney Plus shows. It's been that they feel rushed, unsatisfied, and crammed in the final episode. And I just hope Miss Marvel does not fall into this trap because I enjoy the first episode so much. What do you think, Chris? Do you think Miss Marvel's going to stick this landing?
I'm really, really hoping it does, Rob. I really hope so. I really think it will because a lot of people have kind of suggested that there's not going to be a big bad in this. It's really a coming of age story. It's her coming into her own. And I think 6 episodes is a good amount of time to tell that story. And then when we get to the Marvels, then we can introduce some Marvel rogues, right? But for now, let's have this be a coming of age story where she has to find herself and find out who she is as a hero a little bit.
Which is a great story to tell. I love stories like that.
Same.
I think it's going to be good. You don't need necessarily a big bad.
No.
The big bad is growing up.
Man versus man. Man versus himself, you know?
It's true. Mm-hmm. Love that. Reamer Bulldog goes on to say, also, I remember on a John Campea companion video in 2021, John said Warner Brothers ignored the Ezra Miller choking out a woman, and he said it was going to come back to bite them because they didn't address it when it happened. And boy, was John so right.
Oh, and John loves when he can show his own receipts.
Yes, he can. Yes, and I'm sure you can go back and take that clip out and look at it and go, look what I said. But he was right. I mean, that was a disturbing clip. And now there's been apparently, I mean, he sounds like the new messianic figure in town, like maybe a Charles Manson type. Let's hope not.
They need help. They really need to get sorted.
Yeah, it is. Ezra, come on, buddy.
Yeah.
Cutter Hale. One of two, says, I went to see Dominion tonight, and these people next to me kept talking and being on the phone, and I had to get the manager. Nothing happened, so I had to shush them a lot. And I shushed them, and the guy said he was getting tired of me, but he was, Oh, that's right. I had to tell them that they'd been talking and using their phones, and that I had to tell the manager and that they need to learn to be better moviegoers. This is the first time I thought I would be beat up at the movies. Has this happened to you?
Oh, all the time. Especially in this, as we're coming out of the pandemic, I've had people who will just not shut up during movies because we're so used to watching them in our living rooms where we can do whatever we want. When I went to go see The Eternals, these two girls next to me would not stop talking. And the first couple of times today, hey, could you please stop? Hey, I'm trying to watch the movie. And then I finally leaned over and said, I did not pay to listen to you.
I can't tell you that's what I don't understand why people go into movies and then talk to each other.
Yeah.
Like, why are you there?
Or why are you texting while you're watching a movie?
You know what I like to do?
What?
When people are, and I do this, when people are talking, and especially like if they're right in front of me, I try to put on the Clint Eastwood voice and I say, if you don't shut the F up, I'm going to slit your throat.
Whoa.
From ear to ear.
That's so intense and scary.
I know, right? But people shut up.
That'll do it.
I mean, because the thing is, the only time I actually almost got in a fight at the Hollywood Bowl, Elizabeth and I were there for a classical concert, and these people came in at the intermission, and they started talking all the way through the latter half of the show, and they'd been drinking or whatever. At a classical show, all you're there to do is listen to the music. And they were talking the whole time, and I turned a couple of times, and I made, I said some things. And after the concert was over, a guy got up and wanted to start some static. And the only thing that you can do in that moment is I just looked at him straight, right on, and I just said, would you like to go outside now? And you don't break eye contact. People back down.
Yeah.
They back down. Now, I don't want to test it any further.
No.
I've never, but it's so weird to me that we live in a world where people will talk at a concert, and when you ask them to be quiet, they're mad at you.
At you, yeah.
Because you've dissed them or whatever.
Yeah. These two teenage girls started then talking about what a bitch I was, and when I did did you say something to me? Then it was, no, ma'am. And I was like, oh, ma'am. Okay, well, we're not going to unpack that. I feel very old now.
But it's the funny thing about it is, if people are already talking in movies, they're already assholes.
Yeah.
So by saying anything, you are starting static with another human being. There's no way around it. No one's going to go, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
They're completely oblivious. And the thing is, it shows that they don't care about the people around them.
Exactly.
And they probably don't in the rest of their lives
Super
either.
self-important. I'm sorry that happened to you, Cutter. I think maybe next time just go straight to that manager and
they're
talking. Boot them out or ask for your money back.
Yeah. Or just, you have to, I mean, how can you be talking in a dinosaur movie?
You have nothing worth saying. I can promise you that.
Yeah, man. Come on. Jonathan Nemella says, what I hate about moviegoers. 1, people who leave the movie before the credits roll or during the credits. I find it extremely disrespectful to all artists and filmmakers that you can't stay 3 to 5 minutes to honor those people. Bring on the filthy. Also, Jonathan, they're not listening to, like, if John Williams has scored the movie, don't you want to hear the final score or the final song? Or, I mean, you got to hear Lady Gaga and Top Gun Maverick. I mean, somebody spent a long time making sure that music's good.
Exactly. Well, this is why it's fun to see movies with you, though, too, because you're a end credits guy.
I'm an end credits.
We always stick it out.
We stick it out. But it's part of the creative process.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always curious as, sometimes where the music ends might be if it's an emotional film, it'll end and allow some of the credits to roll in silence. And even that creates an emotional response. Like, oh, by letting the credits roll without music, there's something quiet happening there.
Yeah.
That's a dramatic choice, too.
I love it.
You're missing out. Tim says, could a message from Warner Brothers at the start of The Flash condemning the actions of Ezra be enough and recast after? Some are talking about canceling or recasting a movie that is already shot. That's unfair to the studio, in my opinion. I love the show and the Daily Mail bags. Well, I don't think a studio could say, we're going to apologize for the actions of our star.
Yeah.
I don't know what the legal ramifications of that would be.
That's like if your partner gets really drunk at a party and you're the one who apologizes. It just makes us all go, babe, you got to break up with them.
Yeah, I mean, it's really what I find so strange about this is that a human being in their personal life and then their work life are usually very different things. Like, I would never think to police my friends' marriages.
Yeah.
Or like, if you're a douchebag husband or a deadbeat dad, like, should that affect your workplace? If you're really good, if you're a great worker, it's a bizarre thing. But on the other hand, when your personal life transgresses the bonds of legality and you're doing bad things, you're now reflecting on the business that you are. Like, I've always believed if you decide to be in a movie, rightly or wrongly, you're taking on the responsibility of representing that film. That is your work. Yeah. Rightly or wrongly, it's your work for 24/7 until the movie comes out and earns its money back. And then I'm not saying you should go off and become a mass murderer or something, but I mean, you're still on the job. And that's what a movie star steps up to do. I mean, look at Tom Cruise. The guy's constantly working for his projects. He's working for, and I just think that this is, it's incredibly, despite the fact, I don't know what's going on, the weird shenanigans, but to do this to to do this to the studio and to do this to the people that you're in business with shows really, really, really no consideration at all for the position you've put your employers in.
Exactly. And like they were saying too, all these wonderful, wonderful artisans who helped put this film together, who are currently putting this film together, working really hard on post-production, should the film be real. You know, I think that that's such a disservice to everyone involved here.
Yeah, it's a bad situation. You think about how many people who want to be in positions like Ezra Miller that would kill to be in a movie.
Oh my gosh. My husband auditioned for the TV show The Flash. He would have loved to do this.
Yeah. Mike G says, walked out on Dominion last night. It's a movie about bugs. The dinos are basically stormtroopers. I keep thinking about seeing the first Jurassic Park in theaters 3 times and hiding at certain scenes. It's hard to make a film. Is it hard to ask for a better script?
Ooh, Mike. I mean, apparently it is.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard the movie when I read in reviews that it's about giant locusts, like mutant locusts, I guess, that dinosaurs need to eat because it's part of that food chain. I don't know. No, it's not too hard to ask for a good script. What's amazing to me is this movie. We've already defined what makes a good movie with dinosaurs. Dinosaurs eating people. That's all you need. Good and if there's dinosaurs everywhere, they should either be running across the plains with men on horseback to the setting sun or eating people.
Yeah.
Just do that for 2 hours.
Yeah. When you just think about the dread that first film was able to conjure, right? Just that jello shaking was enough. Seeing things are closer than they appear in this mirror. All of those kinds of shots. I don't need, and I say this as somebody who loves science and is actually very excited about like the little bits of geneticism that's thrown in here. I don't need a lot of that though. I don't need it to bog down my story. I want it to be like what you're talking about. Dinos ripping people's heads off.
Yeah, and like I'm a little facetious when I say that, but look, you have a really interesting conundrum that by resurrecting part of an ecosystem that was there 65 million years ago, how does that affect? I mean, it's a metaphor for global warming or whatever. You've disrupted the biosphere, which is what we're doing. And it's an interesting way. We've made global warming into a palatable format by instead of global warming, it's dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And that's what great science fiction does. You've got a great allegorical mechanism to address these issues. And what happens when we've now set the climate on a path that we can't fix? Then how do we live with it?
Yeah.
And that could have been a really interesting way to go. It was called Dominion. Like, what happens when the dinosaurs have dominion over us? We'll never know because they didn't make that movie. Damn it. Captain Cold, 1 of 2, says, I tried to stay away from the Ezra Miller drama, but I accidentally came across the body cam footage of his arrest, and it is simultaneously hilarious and sad. Belt buckle, Nerf bullets, nerve damage, 4th and 9th Amendment rights, victim card. He was so disrespectful to the police. If you haven't seen it, please watch the body cam footage. That, along with his proclivity towards beating up women, makes me never want to see this clown as the Flash or in a movie again. Warner Brothers has got to let him go. Captain Cold, that is probably a very fair assessment. but what do you do with your $200 million movie?
Yeah. Well, and this is something we talked about on the show, too, of, yeah, he's supposed to be playing this hero. The Flash is supposed to be, you know, a very good guy that there's going to be action figures of. There's definitely already action figures of this version of the Flash, right?
Yeah.
Kids are going to be getting Halloween costumes, all of this stuff. Do you then let your kid dress up as the Flash with all this other stuff going on? Do you separate the art from this? What responsibility does the studio have, especially when things like this are being released? It's, like you were saying, it's a very unprecedented kind of issue, really, of seeing how far a star can fall before a studio has to intervene on some level. It's wild.
Yeah, I don't understand it. And if these reports, like I sent you an article yesterday, if that's led to, if that's true, this has been going on for a long time, which means to me that the studio might have even known this kind of behavior.
Yeah.
And there might be other reasons for it or whatever. Somebody's got to get some help, but clearly there's stuff going on here that is rather unsavory, and it's unfortunate. I just feel bad. I know what it's like to make films, and I feel bad for Andy Muschietti and everybody that worked on this movie that have been putting their heart and soul into it. And there's nothing they can do. It's completely out of their control.
Yeah.
It's like living in a town that gets flattened by a tornado. You know, what can you do? And you're standing there going, "Where's my house that was right over there?" And now they've made a movie and all this collective work. It's so much work by so many different people, and now it might never see the light of day. Although I still want to see it.
Yeah.
That's the real tragedy is they're saying we're hearing the movie's really good. And that's even the worst part. Because I have to tell you, I mean, at some point, even I, that can be very forgiving and I'll watch anything. I'm like, I don't want to watch that douchebag.
No. Well, I doubt the studio, given all this bad press, is going to be like, oh, it's a real dog shit movie. But hey, hang in there. Michael Keaton, he's good.
I mean, can you imagine if you are Michael Keaton, who's always come off as a gentleman and who's had a really long career and a great career resurgence? He agreed to come back as Batman. If that alone should have been worthy of your fellow actors' respect.
Yep.
I mean, the guy almost won an Oscar for Birdman, and you put him in that position. You put that girl that's playing Supergirl, her big shot, being in a tournament. Oh
Totally
man,
overshadowed. It sucks.
Reamer Bulldog sends in another tip and says, part one, hey, John and Rob and Chris, I completely disagree with you about the MCU becoming unbelievable because they've always had magic in the MCU, starting with Doctor Strange 2016, like we've always had to suspend our disbelief. The idea that the MCU is getting too fantastical and is lesser because lesser aren't all science-based anymore, that went out the window with Doctor Strange. These are comic book movies. And yes, the comics are the comics and the movies are the movies, but there's an inherent fantasy element in the material. You can only stay grounded so much until it's not the same anymore. Some characters, you can't ground them, like Captain Marvel and Doctor Strange. You can't ground cosmic characters. There are always going to be fantasy, magical elements to those characters. And Rob, I disagree with you on one more thing. Film is absolutely subjective. Yes, a large amount of people might like a certain film, but it does not mean it is objective because there are going to be people who don't like that same film. Okay, wait a minute. Let me address that first.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. People's opinions of movies and art are subjective. I believe that there is objective greatness in art that you can either choose to recognize or not. Now, I think that history defines those things. Like, for instance, if you look at the AFI top 100 greatest films, there's a consensus there that's happened through the decades with multiple critics and academics and film students and audiences that have picked these things out. Like, I don't have to tell you that these movies are the 100 greatest movies of all time. This has been, our own human history has bared it out. Why is the Mona Lisa a great painting? I don't know, but it's been around for centuries now. People have declared it such because it's not just me or it's not just someone else. A collective judgment has been made by us as a species that have said there's something in here that's great. Now, I might not like something, but that doesn't mean that thing isn't great.
Yeah.
And your background, your socioeconomic background. Look, I can't speak French. So if I'm reading Proust, translated, I might not ever experience the kind of Proustness that I would get if I could read it in French.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you whether I love Proust as much as I would want to. Now, let me ask you this. Like, I understand John always says we go back and forth. He doesn't believe that, he believes all movies are subjective. And I think people's opinions of movies are subjective, but there is an inherent greatness. I think The Godfather is always going to be inherently great, whether you choose to not recognize its greatness or it's not your taste, which is fair. Not everybody likes everything. Do you think that is it all subjective? Is there any objectivity in it? What do you think?
I think there's objectivity to it. I agree with you on this because I got a lot of flack for this about Top Gun, where I was like, objectively, it's a good movie. But it's just not my movie. And people were like, that doesn't make any sense. That's so weird. No, you can see something and recognize this is beautifully shot. The cinematography is gorgeous. The score is so well done. The acting is top tier. But this isn't a story that I connect to.
Right.
And ultimately, that's the subjective part, right? And personal taste does come into this, of course. You know, not everyone likes a Dutch tilt or a lens flare, right? So maybe some people then, when I say something objectively is good, they'll be like, oh no, that cinematography style is garbage and this is that. I can understand that, but there are certain standards in which we hold as good, right? Everything after that is just your own flavor profile. You're going to be attracted to the stories that you're attracted to. And maybe every now and then something catches you off guard and go, oh, wow, this isn't usually my kind of thing, but man, do I dig it. And that's where really great filmmaking happens.
I agree. And like, you know, the idea of a musical, I've heard people that have outright just rejected the idea of a musical. Well, they can't even tell me, you can't tell me if a musical is good or bad or indifferent if you don't even like that form.
Exactly.
So you could say that are you going to say musicals are subjectively bad? If you're not even going to watch an art form, how would you know? And I also think you have to be educated about an art form to really understand it. Anybody can look in front of a picture and how does that affect you? But if I know something about the artist himself or herself or themselves or whatever who painted that photo or painted that picture it's a fresco that was painted in the 16th century. There's a whole history that I don't know anything about because I don't know about 16th century painters. And by not knowing, all I can do is go and say, well, that was a nice picture.
Exactly.
But if you know something about it, then it becomes even more resonant. So
that's why I will dip my toe in the horror genre and then usually just talk to people like you. Where I can go, what is so good about this? Because I'm very scared and I would like to go through the plot points. I've watched the first 15 minutes of so many horror movies and then been like, well, good luck to everyone. As far as I'm concerned, everyone's fine. Bye.
But that's not the meat of this multiple point question.
No.
Now let's get to this. So our viewer astutely asks that I've criticized the MCU for getting too fantastical. That one of the interesting things, if you go back and watch the original Iron Man, it's very grounded. It's the story of one man's coming to grips with his own conscience. Has Stark Industries been doing the right thing? And then he ends up in conflict with his boss who wants to keep making money. So there's no Thanos, there's no Avengers. It's one dude building tech. And it's got one ask that Iron Man exists. In that movie, if Doctor Strange showed up and starts wielding his magic, do you think that movie could have worked as well as it does?
I mean, no. We need the build to get there. Right?
Exactly.
We need to establish things and then we can get bigger, bolder, more fantastical. But, I mean, they do go on to say in here, remember, I do disagree with this too, you can't ground certain characters. You absolutely can. Fantastical things can happen to people, and that's some of the most interesting storytelling, right? Is everyday people in fantastical situations. Obviously, these are superpowered individuals, but if you give them familial issues, if you give them a heartbreak, if you give them a cause to really ground themselves to, then your story is steeped in reality in that way, no matter how many giant purple aliens come your way.
See, now I would say this. For me, what I think the problem with the MCU is, I'll give you an example. My beloved Moon Knight. When I was watching Moon Knight, watching Ammit and Khonshu fighting amidst the pyramids, these giant Egyptian god entities, and Ammit is devouring the souls of human beings. I'm like, this is a post-Thanos world that we're watching. The MCU, to my mind, had not established that entities like what we saw in Moon Knight existed in that world. After 23 movies, yes, Doctor Strange was a sorcerer. We met the Ancient One. We saw his kind of sorcery fighting Dormammu. I buy it. It's all set up. But Egyptian gods running around punching each other, we hadn't had that established yet.
Yeah.
It kind of came out of nowhere. We're dealing with dissociative identity disorder. I still don't know if any of that was real.
Same.
And like Agatha Harkness. So you had sorcerers. Why haven't we seen in 23 movies, they never dipped into the supernatural other than Doctor Strange? If vampires exist, if Blade is there, we know vampires are in the world. So are they immortal vampires?
Mm-hmm.
You know, what does all that mean? Like, you could say that vampirism can have more science. Well, sunlight, there's been something that's changed in your blood. And sunlight, and your cells age differently. You can give it a scientific gobbledygook explanation, but then you're like, okay, vampires can exist. I believe that now.
Yeah.
But the Marvel Cinematic Universe went from 0 to 60 in terms of all of its supernatural elements, and they, beginning with WandaVision, threw all this stuff out. Not only is Agatha Harkness a sorceress, but she's also hundreds of years old.
Mm-hmm.
So where did all that come from? Like, is hell a real place? Does Mephisto show up and because he comes from the underworld? So where does supernatural power come from? Mm-hmm. Now, I know it seems weird, but my belief is tied to the fact that they haven't earned it yet.
I can understand that. Are you hoping then that at some point there is a backtracking of seeing these moments, particularly like woven through the MCU that we've seen so far, that makes up for those things?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think with Dane finding the cursed blade, the ebony blade at the end of Eternals, I'm like, okay, they're going to have to explain what that is, because the audience is like, what? But if they went into that and we could see that history, like they did go into Agatha Harkness's history in WandaVision, I'm like, oh, okay, show it to me, then I can believe it.
Yeah. And you even sympathize with her.
Absolutely. But that's the thing. And when I say that, when I say I don't believe these things, yes, I've been reading comics my whole life. Yes, there's all kinds of supernatural shenanigans going on. I mean, Tomb of Dracula. Dracula was in an X-Men annual. I'm like, okay, you know, I believe all that because they've made me believe it. I mean, if you think about all the craziness in the Marvel, you could talk about Longshot, you could talk about the Mojo verse and all that crap. You know, not crap. I love Longshot, but and I love the Mojoverse. But the you have to earn all that, and you have to explain to me in the MCU that began with Iron Man, grounded the idea of Tony Stark. The MCU began with very grounded stuff where it only asked you to believe that a man could build this suit. Yep. That was the ask. The rest of it was corporate espionage and a man trying to find his own soul and another unscrupulous rich asshole who wanted the company to work and steal it for himself to keep getting money. All that's believable. But if Agatha Harkness walked in and started, you know, casting spells in Iron Man 1, I don't think it would work unless they, you know, earned it.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So there you go. Mark Nadal says, Toy Story. My wife and I really enjoyed that film when it was released. Then she passed on. Soon after Up arrived, it hit very hard to me, but a poignant homage. Now, Lightyear makes me wish she was still around. Seeing it on the 21st, Pixar is amazing.
Oh, Mark. It is really incredible how these stories can just connect with you on such a personal, almost cellular level. I mean, just thinking about the first 10 minutes of Up gets me like very weepy. And to have that kind of personal connection to it and wish your partner was still there to watch it. I totally feel you, Mark. I get that. Oh, man.
But at least he has those memories.
Exactly. And then you get to think about how that experience is. And then you can still talk to them about how you would feel about it if they got to be there and watch it with you.
These mailbags are hard sometimes.
They are, yeah.
Hard sometimes. Armando sends in a tip and says, do you prefer Bryce Dallas Howard as a director or an actor more?
Ooh.
Well, we've seen her direct a couple episodes of Mando and Book of Boba Fett, too, I think. I haven't seen enough of her as a director yet. I love her as a performer.
I love her as an actress.
I think she's great. I mean, not just because I have a redhead fixation, but
that's true, you do.
She, I think she's great. I like her. She has a very, just appealing personality.
She's great in everything. I mean, from her turn in Rocket Man, like she's so good in that. Her dialect is on point. Her work in The Help is incredible. You know, she makes The Village palatable. She's so good. I really like her.
That's right. She's in The Village.
She's wonderful. But yeah, I think we need to see more
no
from her.
plane ever flew above that.
Not a single one.
Airspace was covered. No one saw a satellite at night. Nothing.
Yeah.
Well, is that it? Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, kind souls, gentle beings across the 28 known galaxies, I want to thank you for sending us in these generous tips with great questions and comments because they give us something great to talk about. And Chris, what was your first mailbag like?
Oh my gosh, this was great. This was really, really fun. It was intriguing. It was moving. It was emotional. It gave me everything that I want great films to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
All on this, the John Campea Mailbag for Tuesday, June 14th, 2022. Again, we want to thank you for your support. And I have to say, I didn't hear any laughs from Rayora. Were we entertaining this time? Okay,
that doesn't
good.
seem believable.
And of course, fact checker Jonathan or producer Jonathan. He went from fact checker, he's now producer. I don't want to demote him again. Fact checker Jonathan, now producer Jonathan, did a great job producing this show. So, Jonathan, thank you for that. Chris, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram or Twitter at actor Chris Carr.
And you have classes coming up?
We have a waitlist going for the fall. Thank you very much for bringing it up. If you go to eebstudios.com, you can get on the waitlist for our next Intro to VO class, which will be happening at the end of August.
Can you give us a few more examples of a little voiceover action?
A little voiceover work? Give me a character.
Well, I do love your chipmunk voice.
Well, chipmunk voice is very cute and everyone likes it.
It looks like somebody dubbed that in. Like even watching you live.
I can do a quick one of when you do kid voices, the big thing is, right, making sure that you think about how small their mouth is and small their lungs are. So you can also do that because kids get really excited, so they breathe a lot quicker sometimes because they don't have enough agency yet to really get those full deep breaths. And then sometimes if they're really gunky because little kids never blow out their nose, then you can add a little of that kind of snotty thing in there too.
What? It's just amazing to watch you do that live. No, I just love that you're my trained monkey.
Aww.
So thank you. But that's amazing. Very talented girl.
Well, you ask us to jump, we say how hot.
And my name, of course, is Robert Meyer Burnett. You can find me on Twitter, BurnettRM. Find me on Instagram at RM Burnett, or find me on my YouTube channel, Post Geek Singularity, or the website postgeeksingularity.com. And once again, from all of us here at the John Campea Show, thank you for your ongoing support and your great ongoing commentary.